Hi folks, I'm Jed from the Village Geek, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Flashpoint Fire Rescue. In Flashpoint Fire Rescue, you are going to be playing a team of firefighters going into a building and putting out fires and rescuing humans, as we see here, and there are also pets. And so the way that you're going to win the game is if you successfully rescue 7 or more of these 10 victims. You're going to set aside 10 victims for the game, and so if you successfully rescue 7 out of 10 victims, 7 or more of the 10 victims, then that is a success and you win the game. If, however, 4 or more of those victims die in the fire, then you lose the game. The other way to lose the game is if all of these damage markers get placed onto the board, representing that the house is basically collapsed. If that happens, then you also will lose the game. Now on your turn, you're going to get 4 action points. And the 4 action points, there are several things you can do here. You can just move into an adjacent space. Now you cannot move diagonally, but you can move up, down, left, right, orthogonally. The next thing you can do is you can open a door. And so I could open that door, so I could go 1, 2, open the door for 3, and then move in here for 4. The next thing you can do is you can extinguish fire. And you can extinguish fire that's in the same space as you or in the space next to you. Not diagonal, but orthogonally adjacent. So you can change fire to smoke for 1 action. You can remove smoke for 1 action, or obviously for 2 action points, just remove the fire. And so that is extinguishing. I should note that moving into a spot with fire, not smoke but with actual fire, costs 2 action points instead of 1. The next thing you can do is you can chop. So on your turn, you can spend 2 action points to place a damage marker. So you could spend 4 action points to place a second damage marker. When there are 2 damage markers on a wall segment, you can move through that wall freely. But be careful, because that means fire can also move through that, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So after you take your 4 actions, you are going to advance the fire. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll the 2 dice. And so here we have 4 on the red D6 and a 3 there. So we would put smoke there. If it's an empty space, you just put smoke down. However, if there's already smoke on that space, let's say I rolled that space there, then you would flip that space to fire. Now if the space already has fire, then you're going to have an explosion. When you have an explosion, fire is going to radiate in all 4 directions orthogonally. So let's say this spot gets rolled. Well, there's already fire, so that causes an explosion. We are going to go in all 4 directions until there is nothing in that space. So in this case, or until there is no fire in that space. So let's say there was smoke here. Well, now because of the explosion, that gets turned into fire. If there was nothing there, then you would just put a fire token down. In this case, we would put a damage marker here, and then following this way, we would put a damage marker there. We would also put a damage marker there. Now also, if there is a fireman in a space of the explosion itself or in the shock wave of the fire, that firefighter gets knocked down, and they have to return to the nearest ambulance space on the side of the map. Now at the very end of your turn, after you've taken your 4 actions, you've advanced the fire, all that, you are going to replenish any lost or rescued point of interest tokens. So what you're going to do is you're going to look to see if there are less than 3 point of interest tokens. And that includes any victims that would be face up. So in this case, we only have 2, so we're going to roll the dice, and we're going to place a point of interest token. Now in this case, I rolled a 6 on the red die and a 3 on the black die. In this case, there's already fire there, so we actually remove the fire and place a face-down point of interest token, and so that you do not know what it is. So you're going to continue rolling the dice and placing point of interest tokens on the board until you have 3 total. And again, that includes face-up victim tokens. All right, so a couple ways that you can kind of spice up the family game to make it a little bit more interesting and a little bit more difficult is you can randomly place some of these hazmat tokens on the board at the beginning of the game. So you're going to roll the dice and you're going to place the hazmat tokens. And what's going to happen is if a hazmat token has fire on it, not smoke, but actual fire on the same space, that's going to cause an explosion. And so hazmat tokens are very bad, and they take 2 action points for each space that you move with them, just like a victim would cost you extra action points to move with. The other thing that you can do is you can take these roll cards. And so these are special abilities. The first thing they do is they tell you how many action points you get per turn. We've got the name here, and then we've got some special abilities. So for example, the hazmat technician can spend 2 action points to just remove a hazmat token in your space from the game. That's instead of having to carry them out, you can just move them out. The generalist gets 5 action points, no other special ability. The CAS firefighter gets 3 action points, but they get 3 free extinguish actions. We've got the rescue specialist, which gets 4 action points, 3 free movement action points, and can chop for 1 action point. We have the imaging technician, which for 1 action point can just flip over any point of interest token on the board. At the fire captain, which can move other people around on the board, they get 2 free command action points per turn. The paramedic, which can treat a victim, and then that victim can just move with the fireman without having to spend an extra movement point. And so between the hazmat tokens and the rolls, it's still a pretty easy game to pick up and play, and so I would highly recommend just playing with those 2 additions. And so that is the family game with just a couple slight additions of Flashpoint Fire Rescue.